They say patience is a virtue, but after waiting 6 long years for Knight Silksong, I wasn't sure if patience would pay off. When I finally set foot in Pharloom, I realized that this wasn't just a sequel, it was a reckoning. Faster, harsher and more ambitious, Silksong took everything I loved about Hollow Knight and twisted it into something sharper, stranger and infinitely more demanding. I pushed through every corner of Pharloom, and after more than 115 hours and too many sleepless nights, I became one of the first people to 100% complete it. The climb was as brutal as it was beautiful. Just a quick one before we get into the review. This is a small channel with big dreams, and I'm putting in a lot of effort, often for small results. If you want to help out, please like, subscribe, comment and share with your friends. Let's get nerdy. Pharloom is not Hollow Nest. Where the first game dropped me into a kingdom long dead, Silksong pulled me into a place that is still breathing, still pulsing, still suffering. From the very start, I felt this difference. This wasn't a descent into a grave. It was a climb towards a citadel that loomed above everything, casting both promise and dread over the journey. That inversion changed the rhythm of exploration. Levels were built upwards, packed with shafts, ladders, and precarious ledges. I wasn't just pushing deeper. It felt like I was constantly looking skyward, clawing for ground above. It was a subtle shift, but it reshaped how I read every space. Where Hollow Nest collapsed inward, Pharloom strained towards something, even as its pilgrims and guardians lost themselves along the way. Visually, the artistry is breathtaking. Every biome is layered with detail, forests threaded with thorns, mechanical umbrellas dripping with rust, sanctuaries lit by alien fire. Each tells a story without a word. Bells scattered in ruins hint at a society built in ritual. Strange machinery hums with the remnants of obsession. And I often stop just to admire how every animation, every enemy design, and every shard of background art carried that intention. But Pharloom is a cruel place. Its beauty often overwhelmed clarity, with flashy effects that blur the chaos of combat. Its vertical layouts meant a missed jump could erase minutes of progress. The awe was real, but so was the sting when spectacle collided with readability. And yet, I never stopped exploring. Silksong doesn't mark your map. It whispers through cracks in the wall, faint sounds in the dark, distant glimmers. Following those whispers will often reward you again and again. Pharloom is hostile, but alive. And that tension between wonder and punishment is the heart of Silksong's world. Silksong begins with Hornet in chains. Dragged into a foreign kingdom, stripped of power, she escaped into a world that saw her as both intruder and instrument. This opening does more than just set up the plot. It redefines Hornet herself. Where she once stood as both rival and ally to the Knight, here she becomes the center, carving a path through a land tied to her by threads I barely understood. The narrative was clearer than Hollow Knight's, but still elliptical. The pilgrimage to the citadel gave the game cohesion. Everyone I met, from zealots to shopkeepers, seemed bent or broken by this climb. Some clung to faith, others to survival, and others still to the faint hope of miracles. It grounded the world in a shared purpose, even as details remained obscure. Hornet carries the story more than exposition ever could. She is agile, deliberate, expressive in ways the Silent Knight never was, yet she remains elusive. Her ties to Pharloom are teased, her destiny hinted at, but answers only come in fragments. And that mystery sustained interest, at the price of limiting emotional depth. Side characters provided the spark. The bug who begged me to deliver a message, the wanderer who asked for aid only to vanish later, the eccentric quest giver who wanted me to grant their wishes. These moments humanize Pharloom. They were fleeting, often bittersweet, but they turned a climb into a world of stories. If Hollow Nest was a requiem, Pharloom is a tapestry still being woven. Each NPC, each encounter is another thread. On the gameplay and mechanics side, the first leap told me everything. Hornet was not Knight. She was lighter, faster, able to mantle ledges and sprint across the screen, and weave her needle into motion in a way that turned combat and traversal into one rhythm. Silksong is not just Hollow Knight refined, it's Hollow Knight reimagined. The diagonal dive attack defined her. It propelled her forward, cut through enemies, bounced her back overhead, and chained into aerial repositioning. In combat, it felt incredible, a dance of precision and aggression. In platforming, it was fickle. Dive bomb sequences were spectacular but unforgiving, punishing the smallest overshoot with a tumble into spikes. Absolutely exhilarating when mastered, and completely maddening when mistimed. That tension ran through the whole of the game. Enemies matches Hornet's ability with aggression. Pharloom's creatures swarm, dart, and pummel. Some lunge through spikes, and others fill the screen with bile. Bosses are sharper still, many dealing double damage in the opening hours. These fights were less about brute force and are more about reading patterns, exploiting windows, and using Hornet's movement to survive. When it clicked, combat felt fluid and balletic. When it didn't, it felt oppressive, with readability buckling under flashy effects and cramped arenas. The new crafting system deepens the loop. Tools and resources replace charms as the backbone of build crafting, and I often had to choose between mobility, survivability, or damage, knowing I couldn't carry everything. At first, I hated this restriction, but over time I saw how they forced me to adapt. Entering a new area meant rethinking my loadout, prepare for traversal, or for the boss I knew was waiting. Exploration is still the soul of the game. Maps must be earned, fast travel is sparse, benches scarce. Death punishes carelessness by stripping your currency until you retrieve it. These systems create friction, sometimes tedium, but they make progress matter. Every step upward feels well earned, not given. Silksong is very demanding. At its best, it feels like pure flow, movement, combat, and exploration weaving into something transcendent. At its worst, it tips into frustration. Fiddly platforming, overwhelming enemies, unclear visuals. Yet, it always pushes you towards mastery, never quite content with you muddling your way through. If you think Hollow Knight was daunting to 100%, Silksong certainly raised that bar. Achievements are a gauntlet. 40 bosses to defeat, multiple endings to unlock, countless side quests to resolve, and a crafting system that demands obsessive resource hunting. To complete Silksong wasn't just a play it was to live in Pharloom, and that's exactly what I've done. Some achievements came naturally, finishing storylines, conquering mandatory bosses, and unlocking new areas. Others pushed into grind. Farming materials meant revisiting areas again and again, or scouring every screen for rare drops. However, completionism in Silksong was more than a checklist. Optional quests unravel hidden storylines. Helping an NPC grant their wish might have seemed trivial at the time, but following that chain reveals consequences that reshape my view of Pharloom. Optional bosses deliver some of the most satisfying encounters in the whole game, with battles tuned for those willing to go the extra mile. Hell, even resource farming had its moments, leading me into corners of the map I would have otherwise missed. The achievements are not always respectful of your time though. Some requirements felt excessive, padding out the journey rather than enriching it. But chasing 100% changed how I saw the game. What otherwise felt like isolated areas at first revealed themselves as interconnected threads once I dug deep enough. By the time I saw everything and every ending, upgraded every tool, and claimed every achievement, I didn't just feel like I'd finished Silksong. I felt like I truly understood it. The final achievement didn't just mark a completion, it marked survival. Few games reward obsession like this one, and fewer still demanded so much. The mountain of Pharloom was brutal, but summiting it was absolutely unforgettable. Hollow Knight Silksong isn't just more Hollow Knight. It redefines its own foundations. Faster, sharper, more vertical, more punishing. It's a world that is absolutely stunning. Its system ambitious, its challenges relentless. At times it felt overwhelming to me, and at other times it frustrated me, but more often than not, it absolutely astonished me. As a completionist, I felt both wrung out and exhilarated. Silksong doesn't just ask for hours upon hours. It asks for your absolute commitment, and maybe even a little bit of OCD. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, comment down below, but most importantly of all, until next time, stay nerdy.